Xavier and his group fled for their lives as they sensed the Q energy coming closer. The older students they tried to fight were left behind. Although Xavier was unhappy that they had to give up as they finally gained the upper hand, he knew he could not risk running into more students. As quickly as he could, he rushed through the thick forest. One of the older students threw a deadly glare at Xavier and his group as they rushed away. "Bastard! How did they improve so much in one day? If they keep fighting like that, they'll defeat us the next time they encounter us." A young man who looked like the leader of the group cursed loudly. They tried to avoid Xavier and his group for the rest of the day, but it was to no avail. As the groups encountered each other for the third and final time, the older students were defeated in 20 minutes. Xavier greedily took their fire crystal cards. Finally, one by one, they transferred the fire energy onto their own cards. After this fight, news spread amongst the older students. Everyone talked about the group of new students who were bold enough to attack the older ones for their fire energy. This was nothing they had ever experienced before. Some of the older groups began to panic. The entire situation in the forest turned into one of sheer chaos. Even the groups at the edge of the forest heard the news. "Have you heard? There's a group of new students who attacked the older ones." "Really? Who told you that? That sounds made up. No new student would be so bold," replied one of the group members. "It's not made up, I swear. Lai told me about it earlier. I ran into him back at the crossroad to see if any new student was around. He warned me. Told me that these new students got Ling and his group. When they were found, they were tied up to a tree," informed the first person. "Ling and his group were tied up to a tree? You're joking, right? There's no way. How is this possible? Who are these new students?" asked another member of the group. "Someone told Lai that the leader of the group is called Xavier. He's from the Xiao clan in the Empire of the Heavens. I think we should steer clear of this group. If they can defeat Ling, they can defeat us as well," suggested the first person. Since the older students were only talking about Xavier and his group, the new students quickly learned what was going on as well. Unlike the older students, they were not scared. Instead, they were thrilled. "You think we can run into Xavier and ask him to join? I really want to beat those older students up, to give them a taste of their own medicine. They think they can treat us as punching bags just because we're new. It serves them right to get humbled by Xavier and the others. If you run into him, let me know. I want to join as well." Not long after, word spread. Many groups of older students were forced to withdraw from the forest. The new students who encountered them were terrified as they saw the older ones. However, much to their surprise, the older students did not bother to attack them. This was because of the rules of Nanji Academy. According to the rules, once the older students had less than 10 days' worth of fire energy, they were forced to withdraw from the fire energy hunting competition. Since Xavier and his group took all the fire energy they could, all the older students were left with only 7 days' worth of fire energy. Eventually, 4 groups of older students were defeated and forced to withdraw. Embarrassment was written all over them. They did not expect to get defeated by the new students. The reason they wanted to participate in the fire energy hunting competition was because they expected the new students to be easy targets to gain more fire energy. And usually, this was the case. It was only due to Xavier and his group that things looked very different this year than any year before. All of this was a slap to the face for the older students. "New students who attack us. We'll make sure to make them pay for insulting us. Who do they think they are?" A group of older students that was forced to withdraw cursed Xavier and his group loudly. They remembered how humiliated they were back when they were the new students in the fire energy hunting competition. It had become a sort of tradition at Nanji Academy to humiliate and humble the new students. Now the older students were the ones humiliated, and they were furious about it. Some of the older groups were less afraid and more daring, for the most part because they could not believe it. They wanted to see for themselves and check if Xavier's group was really as scary as everyone said. One of the groups searched for Xavier's group all day long. As it began to get dark, they thought that these rumors must have been made up to scare them. It was late evening, and the older students found themselves in an empty clearing in the middle of the forest. Golden and red leaves covered the ground. 5 younger students were surrounded by them. They were beaten bloody, but they refused to give up. Minutes later, they were crawling on the ground. The older students decided to fight this one group before calling it a day and setting up camp. Each of them had a badge with a tower on their chest. One of the older students with long hair and a slender figure walked up to them. "I'll kick your ass if you think you can take my fire energy from me." Blood ran down the face of the younger student as he spat at the older student with the long hair. The older student frowned. "Kick my ass? You arrogant bastard. Do you think you're in any position to kick my ass? Did I hit your head too hard? Just look at yourself. You're bruised and bleeding. You have no chance to fight anyone, let alone me." The younger student did not care. "Even if I can't, Xavier will. Once he shows up, it's over for you." The older student laughed. "Xavier, are you also pretending there is a new student who can beat us old students up? Do you think you can scare me? It's not going to work. I'm not buying any of it. We've been searching for Xavier all day long, and guess what? We haven't seen him once. We're not going to fall for any of these tricks. You're wasting your time, idiot. Maybe you should believe what they're saying." Suddenly, Xavier's voice echoed through the forest. He leapt down a tree branch and landed on the ground behind the old students. Layla, Sunny, Ty, and Hal landed to his left and his right. The other new students beamed with joy as Xavier and his group appeared. They loudly cheered. At the same time, the smug grin on the long-haired older student disappeared. He quickly turned around and saw Xavier with his group. "Xavier of the Xiao clan, finally I get to meet you. I already thought they made you up. You should hand me over your fire energy. We're not as weak as the other losers you've beaten up. You won't stand a chance against us." Xavier and the others laughed. "Yeah, that's the same thing the last group said. It didn't end well for them." The long-haired student did not spend more time insulting Xavier. He was getting tired and wanted to get this over with. He gestured toward his group member, and they all readied their attacks. Powerful Q energy surged from their bodies. The yellow leaves on the ground flew into the air. Xavier readied his Q energy as well. It surrounded his clenched fists. He was the first one to attack. Layla, Ty, Hal, and Sunny stood behind and waited for his command. The four older students dodged all of Xavier's attack. However, Xavier also was able to dodge all of their attacks. He was a worthy opponent. Once an attack was about to reach Xavier, Sunny and the others stepped in. Abruptly, they launched their attacks on the older students. They were caught off guard. Moments later, the older students fell to the ground. Bruises covered their skin. They trembled with shock. The expression of their leader changed drastically. He was the last man standing. As Xavier jumped forward and landed in front of him, the older student wanted to back off, but it was too late. Xavier raised his fist. The green Q energy that was wrapped around it raised in strength. The older student was struck by the Q energy like lightning. He had no time to react. Xavier's fist hit his face. The older student was sent flying backward. With a loud bang, he landed against the tree. He groaned out in pain. The other new students kept cheering. They knew Xavier and his group could defeat the older students. After seeing Xavier merge the flames and become the champion in the qualifying competition, they had no doubts anymore. Xavier truly was their champion. Xavier rubbed the fire crystal cards of the defeated older students against his own. He grinned as he saw the number on the display increase. 74 days worth of fire energy. I really enjoy the fire energy hunting competition. I think I'll participate again next year if I have the chance. Sunny felt the same. This was the 5th group now, so there are still 5 more groups left. I think we should avoid the black and the white group, meaning there are still 3 groups we could easily rob. However, it'll be difficult to locate the remaining groups since the forest is so large. What do you say, Xavier? Xavier nodded. He looked over the 5 new students. I agree. Since there are still 3 groups, that means there are 15 people in total. Finding all of them in the forest will be difficult. However, Xavier stopped mid-sentence as he got an idea. The new students don't have the same restrictions the old ones do, right? What do you mean, Xavier? Sunny asked. Well, when the old students get robbed of their fire energy, they're excluded and have to leave the fire energy hunting competition. But we, the new students, are exempt from that, right? If we get robbed of our fire energy, we don't have any fire energy left, which sucks, sure, but it won't get us kicked out of the competition. I believe a lot of the new students must still be wandering around without any fire energy left after being defeated. Where are you going with this, Xavier? I don't like the sound of that, Sunny voiced. I have an idea. I think it'd be helpful to gather all the new students. We can then hopefully attract the remaining three groups and combine our strengths to finish them off, Xavier explained, looking at the others. Ty's expression turned sour. Attract the remaining three groups with the help of the new students? That's insane. What if the 5 groups of older students team up as well? We would have no chance to fight all of them, not even with the help of the new students. Most of them are weak and useless. Besides, I don't want to share any fire energy with them. Xavier furrowed his brows. Don't be so harsh, Ty. The other new students are also in the top 50 from the Outer Nanji Academy, remember? They're not much weaker than us. If they were weak, they would not be in the top 50 of the Outer Academies. The only reason all of them got defeated so easily was because they didn't work together. Additionally, we can't continue the way we did up until now. If we keep doing things on our own without help, we'll struggle to find the remaining groups of older students. It'd take ages until we found them without support. Remember what the elder said? The people who arrive at the earliest will be rewarded. Do you want to be late and not get anything? Hao nodded. He agreed with Xavier and tried to reason with Ty. Ty, Xavier's right. We've already spent 3 days in this forest. We need to find a way to speed things up. Teaming up with the other new students is the best course of action. What do you think, Layla? Layla looked up from her nails. Sure. Honestly, I'm fine with anything as long as we reach the inner circle soon. I'm sick and tired of running through the woods. Xavier, you're the group leader. Just tell us what to do. Ty could not help but agree as well. His opinion was clearly outnumbered, and Layla was right. They did vote for Xavier to be the group leader, so they had to follow his lead. Once Ty agreed, Xavier smiled. I'm surprised you're all so agreeable suddenly, but I guess I shouldn't complain about that. Anyways, are you guys all right? I hope the medicine helped a bit. Xavier turned back to the new students who were defeated by the older students earlier. They beamed with joy. We're doing great. Thank you, Xavier. We were hoping you would come and save us. Without your medicine, we would have had to crawl to the inner circle of Nanji Academy. And who knows how long this would have taken? Xavier laughed. Don't worry about it. We're all new students. We gotta stick together here, right? You guys want to help us pay them back? The 5 new students were startled. They only overheard bits and pieces of Xavier's conversation with his group. Therefore, they did not expect Xavier to ask for their help. They hesitated for a moment and looked at each other. After a while, they agreed to help Xavier and his group. I'm happy to hear that. Then I'll have to ask you all to do me a favor, Xavier stated. Sure, Xavier, we would be happy to help you, but how? We're nowhere near your level. Xavier was surprised as the 5 new students agreed to follow his order without hesitation. He didn't know how much of an impression he had left after the fight in the qualifying competition. Additionally, they admired Xavier for hunting those older students down. The new students all revered Xavier as an idol. I appreciate it. Thank you. All I want you to do is spread out and search for other new students in the forest. Tell them that if they want to regain the fire energy they were robbed of, they can come here to join our group. I'll lead them into a war against those arrogant older students who think they can use us as punching bags. Will you do this for me? Xavier looked at all of the 5 students as he asked this. The new students were thrilled. They grinned widely. That's an easy task. Funny you should ask. You know, a lot of us were communicating with some other new students already. Many of us tried to hide from the older students. Since we're not as strong as you and your group, there wouldn't be much point of picking fights with the older students. But maybe with your help, this will change soon. We'll try to gather as many as possible. They shouldn't be far from here. That's great. Oh, by the way, if any of you run into any of the older students on the way, don't tell them about our plan. Just play along with whatever they want and hand them the fire crystal cards. Don't worry about the fire energy. If they steal it from you, I promise we'll make sure you'll get it back, Xavier informed. The new students stood up and went to Xavier. They took respectful bows in front of him. Thank you, Xavier. We promise we'll do our best to help you. Once they said this, they quickly separated and rushed into the thicket of the forest. Xavier watched them for a minute and then turned to Sunny and the others. All right, that's taken care of. Now we need to wait for the new students to show up. Once everyone's here, we can pay back what the older students have done to the new ones. Xavier and his group set up camp. It was easy to hunt some small birds for dinner. Xavier also had some herbs and spices in his storage ring so they could season the meat. Meanwhile, Layla and Hal went to pick some vegetables and berries as well. They spent the rest of the evening chatting and laughing. The 5 older students were left tied to the tree trunk. Xavier did not feel like letting them go just yet, although they technically had to leave the forest since Xavier and his group took their Q energy. Xavier decided to ignore this rule. He said he would let them go later once he does not have to worry about the older students alerting the other older students. If the other older students would learn of Xavier's plan, their whole mission would be in danger. Xavier and the others were surprised the next morning, as a large number of new students appeared. More and more kept showing up this morning. Xavier did not expect the 5 new students to work so quickly. Every new student that showed up threw angry glares at the old students that were tied to the tree. As the new students returned, they went to Xavier. "We told everyone we could find. What do you want us to do now?" "Wow, that was quick. I thought this would take another day or so. All right, since this is done, I want you to head out and look for the other groups of older students, but not the ones who are dressed in all black, and not the ones who are dressed in white either. We need to avoid those. I've been told they're all at least level 5 she-masters. Once you've found them, lure them here, but don't tell them about our plans." The new students nodded and quickly rushed into the depths of the forest. Not even a minute later, they were out of sight. Xavier took a look at the new students who had arrived. Initially, some of the new students were worried. As they've been told that Xavier wants to recruit them, they thought that it could be a trick. Once they saw Xavier and his group, they were astonished. "So it's really true? Xavier wants our help?" "I told you it's true. Why are you so paranoid?" uttered another student. "But why would Xavier want our help? It doesn't make any sense, does it? We're nowhere near his level." As the flow of new students gradually stopped, Xavier stood up and let his voice echo through the forest. "Everyone, thank you for showing up. Do you want to pay these old students back?" His question was met with loud cheering. Almost every one of the new students was bullied by the older ones, one way or another. Some still had scars and bruises to prove it. They were eager to give the older students a taste of their own medicine. Not long afterward, 3 of the new students, who alerted the others, went to Xavier. "Xavier, we did what you told us to do, and told the 3 groups of older students that some of us are hiding here. They should be on their way." Xavier clapped his hands with a grin. "All right then. If you want to pay them back, follow my orders. I want everyone to hide in the bushes close to our camp. As soon as they arrive, we'll finish them off with one blow and take back our fire energy. Are you all with me?" The students did not see the 2 elders who were sitting high in the tree branches above. These elders kept a close eye on the students. With a mischievous smirk, they looked at each other. "This is going to become very exciting." The new students went to hide between the trees and bushes. They were as silent as possible. No one dared to make a move. Meanwhile, Xavier and his group, consisting of Sunny, Hal, Ty, and Layla, entered their training mode. They sat on the ground beneath the trees with closed eyes and crossed legs. Their breathing was calm and steady. They knew they had little time to prepare themselves before the older students arrived. It was only a matter of minutes. Xavier opened his eyes as he could sense more than 10 different strong Q energies approaching. "They're coming." His body trembled. Powerful Q energy came surging forth. They were rushing through his Q pathways. Sunny and the others next to him also opened their eyes. Glowing Q energy wrapped around their bodies. Patiently, they waited for the imminent battle. Suddenly, some bushes in the distance rustled. About a dozen people flashed out and landed heavily in front of Xavier. The ground quivered. Their powerful Q energies made Xavier's skin crawl. He knew he could not afford to underestimate them. The older students waved their hands simultaneously, and their Q energies turned into a curtain to shield them. "They do have some skills." Xavier raised his head. He counted the older students. It was 15 in total. "The last 3 groups in that fire energy hunting competition, save for the black and white group. That is good." Xavier was relieved. He was worried that the black and the white group might show up as well. Since the black and the white group were a lot more powerful, this could have caused some problems. Xavier unsheathed the broadsword ruler. One of the older students took a step forward and spoke. This rebellion ends right now. Do you think you're in any position to break our tradition? For centuries, the fire energy hunting competition was held to humble the arrogant new students. Whenever they arrive, they think they can run around and act like they own the place. The older students are supposed to humble them. That's what the fire energy hunting competition is for. You're in no position to change this. We'll make you regret this. Xavier only laughed at the threats. He tightened his grip around the broadsword ruler and swung it. The weapon caused a gust of air. Some leaves around Xavier flew into the air. You think I give a shit about this dumb tradition? Are we supposed to just stand there and take it without defending ourselves? Who do you think you are? You arrogant brat. I've met many people like you in the past. You won't make it long in the inner circle. Another older student said and stepped closer. He was much taller than the other students and also a lot bulkier. As he spoke, the other students took a step back. It looked as if he was the leader of one of the three groups. His skin looked strange. It was sort of gray, resembling a rock. Let's teach these arrogant new students a lesson. Yeah! Two young men next to him readied their attacks. Following this, the others joined. The Q energy in the air became a lot stronger. Powerful Q energy ripples rushed through the leaves like a strong wind. The leaves on the ground were blown into the air, where they danced for a while. Xavier did not say a word. Instead, he made a whistling sound with his fingers. Suddenly, dozens of people flashed forth from the bushes. A handful of them jumped down from the trees. They formed a circle around the 15 older students. Various colors of Q energy wrapped around their bodies. Although none of them were close to the strength of the older students, they clearly outnumbered them. The expressions of the older students changed. Their smug smiles dropped, and they looked annoyed. Did you trick us? Xavier shrugged. Sorry about that. I figured if we told you about our plans, you wouldn't show up here with the others. One of the leaders huffed. You're clever, I'll give you that. But you're also very bold. Being so bold will only get you into trouble. You know there were new students who tried to form groups in the past. None of them lasted. None of them were willing to be commanded by someone else, which led to their downfall. They tore each other up, and then the older students defeated them without any effort. I'm surprised to see all of them obey you without complaint. You must be a natural leader. Xavier laughed. You're flattering me, but I don't think I'm a natural-born leader. Anyway, I want you to give the fire energy back to the new students you've robbed. It belongs to them. One of the leaders of the older students rolled his blue eyes and brushed some of his white hair out of his face. He turned toward the tall leader next to his group. Looks like we need to work together, Jan. Are you okay with that? The tall, muscular leader grinned. Sure, Lang. What about Jing? Is he going to join? The tall leader named Jan turned his head to the leader of the third group. The third leader nodded, with a wide grin that showed all his teeth. Lang was relieved as he saw this. All right then, you know how the saying goes. If you want to kill a snake, you need to cut its head off. Looks like this head is the young man Xavier of the Shao clan. Jing waved his hands. Lang, Jan and I will take care of the three guys in front of us. The others can block the other new students and the two girls. The 12 older students did not disobey Jing. They nodded and braced themselves for the fight. All right, if that's the case, I want Sunny and Layla to help the other students defend themselves. What about you, Hao? Xavier uttered. Hao did not have to think for long. I will take on the big guy with the gray skin. I want to see if he is as tough as he looks. Tai was a bit more hesitant. I guess I'll take the guy with the white hair. Xavier nodded. Okay then, I will take care of their other leader, Jing. I want to finish this quickly. Remember to keep your guard up. Do not underestimate them. They have a lot more experience than we do. The three leaders of the older students suddenly rushed forth. They moved like lightning. At the same time, Xavier, Hao, and Tai rushed forward to meet their attack. They collided in the middle of the empty space. As they clashed, waves of powerful Q energy appeared in the air. Numerous trees in the forest bent backward as the wave hit them, as if they were in a hurricane. Leaves and branches flew through the air. Xavier waved his broadsword ruler. The heavy weapon came crashing down, smashing toward Jing. As the weapon was only a few inches away from Jing's head, Jing jumped back. Impressive, Jing said and jumped off the ground. His body moved as if it was weightless. Suddenly, 2 daggers appeared in his sleeves. He threw them toward Xavier. While the daggers were in the air, Jing moved his hands. Suddenly, the speed of the flying daggers increased. Wow, these daggers are a lot faster than any I've ever seen. Not even I could do something like this. Luckily, it won't be difficult to block them off. Xavier moved the broadsword ruler, blocking off the daggers. They smashed against Xavier's weapon and weakly fell to the ground. Jing was furious. He waved his hand, and the daggers came flying back. Once he caught them, he immediately threw them again. Yet Xavier blocked them off with the broadsword ruler without any effort. Jing tried the same attack a few more times. However, the attack did not cause a scratch on Xavier. Xavier did not bother to immediately attack Jing. Instead, he studied the young man. Judging from his movements and his speed, he must have a wind elemental attribute. I won't be able to keep up with him when it comes to speed and agility, so I need to find a different way to defeat him. Xavier occasionally moved the broadsword ruler to avoid the daggers. Although Jing's speed and agility were incredible, so was Xavier's spiritual perception. It was easy for Xavier to rely on his spiritual perception. This way, he could sense things that others would not notice until it was too late. This guy Jing is really a force to be reckoned with. If it would not be for my spiritual strength, I would be screwed. Xavier glanced to his left and his right side. Behind Jing were countless students fighting. The sound of Q energy explosions, roaring, and swords clashing echoed through the forest. The sounds could be heard for miles. The quiet forest transformed into a huge battlefield. Tai, who was facing Lang, did not back down in front of his powerful opponent. In his hand was a silver lance. Lightning wrapped around it. Lang was shocked as he saw how strong Tai was. He knew he had to take this fight seriously. With a flick of his wrist, a large knife appeared in his hand. From it, Q energy came forth, slashing at Tai. Compared to Xavier's and Tai's fights, Hao's fight was the one that caused the people near them to tremble with fear. Yan, the tall man with the gray skin, did not bother to use a weapon. Instead, he used his Q energy to cover his body, causing him to transform into a giant that looked like it was made of rock. Whenever he waved his enormous fists, they were like boulders. This frightening sight alone would have been enough to make most opponents flee. Luckily, Hao was not easy to intimidate. Not once did he step back to avoid Yan's attacks. In Hao's hand was a huge blood-red sword. It was the same sword he used to fight Xavier during the qualifying competition. Red Q energy surrounded not only his sword, but also his body. Being faced with such a brave opponent also caused Yan to beam with joy. Even in the inner circle, there were hardly any opponents that were not scared of him. Whenever Yan was fighting another student, it was usually someone who was either scared senseless, or someone who tried to defeat him with agility and speed. It was rare for Yan to fight someone who dared to face his attacks head-on. Due to this, he was laughing loudly. The laughter made the other students nearby tremble. It sent fear into their hearts. Some of them fought against Yan. As they saw his opponent not backing off even once, they gained a lot of respect for Hao. The fight went on and on. Although the new students greatly outnumbered the old students, they were at a disadvantage. They lacked the experience and the teamwork the older students possessed. The older students have known each other for years. Their individual strength was not bad either. The new students quickly realized this. Every now and then, one of the new students had to admit defeat and crawl away from the battlefield to recover. However, as Sunny and Layla noticed this, they decided to do something. Without hesitation, they took charge of the new students. They told them exactly what to do and how to act. This caused a huge shift in the fight. Within 10 minutes, the defensive Q energy guard of the older students was torn apart. This sent them into a state of panic. Some even tried to flee and regroup. Moments later, 3 of the older students were knocked out. The elders who watched were stunned. Momentarily, they thought of interfering, but then decided against it. While many of the old and new students were heavily injured, so far, no one was close to death. And according to the rules, only murder was not allowed. Additionally, the elders really wanted to see how this was going to end. The elders knew that this year's fire hunting competition would be the event of the year. No one would talk about anything else. At this time, Xavier had fully studied Jing's attack. Xavier memorized his exact patterns and movements. Finally, it was Xavier's time to attack. He tightened his grip around the broadsword ruler and swung it with all his strength. Jing was caught off guard at Xavier's sudden move. Jing abruptly jumped back. He made some gestures with his hand. Xavier grinned. He opened his mouth, and a roar came from it, shaking the entire forest. The lion roar that came from Xavier's throat shocked everyone. A handful of students fell to their knees. As they turned around to the source of the lion's roar and saw Xavier, their jaws dropped. Some of the students who were close by felt dizziness spread through their heads. They temporarily forgot what was going on. This dizziness only lasted a few seconds, but in a fight, these few seconds can make the difference between life and death. Xavier's opponent, the older student Jing, also temporarily lost his senses. As the dizziness disappeared, Jing cursed himself. He knew the price one had to pay for being absent-minded at a crucial moment during a fight. Xavier was aware of this as well. A grin spread over his face. Octane Blast! He clenched his fist. His green Q energy wrapped around it, and he smashed one ruthless attack toward Jing's head. The force of the fist sent a wave of fear into Jing's heart. Since he was distracted by the roar earlier, he did not have enough time to react. In the reflection of Jing's shock-filled eyes, one could see the green Q energy that hit his body. Countless cracks formed in his Q energy armor. The cracks spread out, covering the Q energy armor like a web. After a few moments, the Q armor shattered with a loud cracking sound. With Jing's final defense broken, Xavier knew it would only take one more hit to defeat Jin. Xavier tightened his clenched fist and delivered the final blow. Jing's face turned pale at the pain shooting through his body. The force of the hit was too much. Like a sack of flour, he fell to the ground, wrapping his arms around his aching body. The heat coming from Xavier's Q energy made the pain feel worse. Xavier took one look to see if Jing would stay on the ground. Once he was sure Jing would not stand up anytime soon, Xavier sheathed his broadsword ruler onto his back. With an icy glare, he looked at the other older students. They were so shocked, they forgot to continue their own fights. "What? Do you all want to fight or not?" yelled Xavier. The other two leaders of the older students swallowed loudly. "Jing was defeated? How is this possible?" They exchanged a concerned look. Although neither of them would admit it out loud, Jing was the strongest among the trio. They never expected him to get defeated so easily by a new student, especially not so quickly. "No, we won't give up just because you defeated Jing. We need to keep fighting and avenge him. Everyone, let's show them what Nanji Academy taught us. Let's show these new arrogant bastards who's in charge." The loud outcry was met with cheering from the older students. Immediately, they charged at Xavier. Their reputation was extremely important to them. Admitting defeat to a bunch of new students would have been more humiliating than death to the older students. If the others at Nanji Academy heard that they got defeated by the new students, they would never hear the end of it. No one would take them seriously again. Powerful Q energy rose from their bodies. They did not hold back. Bloodlust was in their eyes. Xavier's mouth twitched. He unsheathed the broadsword ruler again and turned to Tai and Hao. "Tai, Hao, finish your fight quickly. Don't hold back." The green Q energy around Xavier's body grew stronger. He sent more and more Q energy through his Q pathways and out of his body. He was at his peak. Suddenly, he took the broadsword ruler and smashed it into the ground in front of him. It was left stuck in the muddy earth of the forest. The Q energy that surrounded him grew even stronger. Like a lightning bolt, Xavier charged forward. 3 of the older students felt their skin crawl as Xavier's Q energy approached them. They saw Xavier's fist coming closer. Instantly, they wanted to dodge, but they were not quick enough. They were hit with Xavier's fist. Within 1 minute, several punches landed on their faces and chests. Their power left them. With a loud bang, Xavier delivered one final blow against each of them. One by one, they were hit and flew backward. One of them crashed against the tree behind him, and another landed in the mud. The third one was thrown into the bushes. In moments like this, Xavier wished he had a more useful agility D technique. It could speed fights up. He did not practice much with his lightning storm agility D technique yet, but he already realized that it was useless in close combat, even more so in a forest where he had to move and dodge between the branches and roots on the ground. While the lightning storm D technique was very helpful in gaining speed on an open field, it was impossible to make any sudden turns or jump over hindrances. All Xavier could do was rely on his own agility. While Xavier was busy fighting off the three older students, the other fights were also coming to an end. Tai shot a silver lance at his enemy Lang. The silver lance stopped only an inch before Lang's throat. He quickly threw his hands into the air, admitting defeat. Tai knew it was only due to luck that he won this fight. Otherwise, the fight would have dragged on for ages. This was because Tai and Lang were equal in strength. However, while Lang had the advantage of more experience, Tai had the advantage of a better Q method. This meant that when Lang started to worry about running out of Q energy, Tai still had a lot of Q energy left in his Q cyclone. As Lang admitted defeat, Tai let out a sigh of relief. He kept his lance focused on Lang to make sure he would not make a sudden move. Lang moved his head to the left and the right as much as he could without running into the risk of getting hurt. His hands were still in the air. As he saw that all the leaders of the older students were defeated, his face turned grim. He was not used to being defeated, especially not by some new students who have never been in the inner circle of Nanji Academy. Tai glanced over to Xavier. Although Xavier was the reason for this victory, Tai could not help but grit his teeth in anger as he saw the way the other new students looked at Xavier. Did they forget that we also helped them? It's not as if he was the only one fighting the old students. Why are they all over him and not us? Ugh, this is ridiculous. It was clear that the new students looked up to Xavier as if he was a hero. Tai and the others were completely sidelined. The anger inside Tai's heart grew. Abruptly, Tai smashed the lance in his hand against Lang's chest. Lang, who already gave up the fight, was caught off guard. The force of the lance caused him to fall backward on the ground. He coughed up some blood. With a furious spark in his eyes, Lang raised his head and glared at Tai. Tai only laughed. What? Want to get back to fighting, idiot? Tai took another step forward. He raised his lance, aiming another attack at Lang. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed past. Tai could feel how someone gripped his lance. As he turned his head, he saw Xavier. Tai, what are you doing? He admitted defeat. Why bother kicking someone who's already on the ground? The lance in Tai's hand trembled. Tai huffed and ripped the lance free of Xavier's grip and stomped away. Xavier watched Tai's back as he walked away. He then took a look at Hao, who also defeated his opponent. Xavier then looked back to Lang. As he saw his wounds, Xavier sighed and brushed over his storage ring. A bottle of healing medicine came flying forth. Xavier threw it casually to Lang. Sorry about that. Lang was surprised and almost dropped the crystal bottle of healing medicine that Xavier threw at him. He opened the bottle and took a sniff. As the scent of soothing medicine hit his nose, Lang's angry expression softened. Without hesitation, he poured the medicine over his wounds. His body and muscles were visibly relaxed. A moment later, he pulled out his fire crystal card and handed it to Xavier. Xavier took it and looked at the number on the screen of the card. On it was the number 68. Amongst all the fire crystal cards Xavier had collected so far, this was the highest number he had seen. Xavier gave Lang a grateful nod and a faint smile. Lang raised his head and leaned himself back against the tree behind him. Tell that friend of yours he's trash, and I'll get back to him later to pay him back. Xavier nodded. He knew that Tai had gone overboard. While it was not necessarily against the rules, attacking someone after they willingly gave up was very frowned upon, even more so during competitions that were not life-or-death fights. Lang continued to talk. Although you defeated our groups with the help of the new students, you won't be able to obtain the reward and head to the inner academy. There are still 2 groups remaining who will be challenging opponents, even for someone like you. Xavier nodded. I know, there's the black group and the white group. Lang was surprised. How do you know about them? You gathered quite a bit of information. Anyway, if you want to reach the inner circle of the academy, it'll be easier said than done. The purpose of the fire energy competition is to humble the arrogant new students. Xavier glanced over to Hal. I understand, but I don't want us to get robbed before we even enter the inner circle. Also, these methods you and the other older students use to humble new students are very questionable, aren't they? You're just beating a bunch of kids into submission. I understand that you want to participate in this because at some point you received this treatment from the students before you, but that's not okay, and it won't be something that will be tolerated forever. If we would not form a resistance, then perhaps the next students to join the inner circle would, or perhaps the ones after that. It was only a matter of time until new students were sick of being misused as punching bags so that the older students could vent their frustration. Lang was silent. He knew Xavier was right. Silently, he thought back to the time he was a new student. He was excited to join the inner circle after hearing how much more powerful he could get. The first thing that happened, however, was that he was beaten half to death by one of the older students and left in the forest. This caused a feeling of resentment to grow in Lang's heart. He would never forget how humiliated he felt. Xavier looked over the battlefield. Most of the fights had ended. The forest gradually turned back into its silent state. When the fights ended, more and more birds returned to the high branches to sing their songs. It appears that the battle is over. This was a lot tougher than I expected it to be. There are less than 15 new students left standing. Originally, we had about 30 or 40. At the moment the last old student fell to the ground, loud cheering echoed through the forest. The new students that were not knocked out applauded. Laughter could be heard as well. With the sound of laughter, the tension in the air during the battle disappeared. The loud cheering and laughter echoed through the forest after the new students defeated the older students in the fire energy hunting competition. Something like this had never happened at Nanji Academy before. The new students were overjoyed. They knew that they just made history at the academy, and they also knew that this was all thanks to Xavier. Xavier raised his head and looked at the excited and happy new students that looked at him like an idol. Everyone, make sure to treat the wounds of the other new students. Although we won, we had a lot of bad losses. We need to make sure they'll recover as soon as possible. I also want some of you to collect the fire crystal cards from the older students, so that we can distribute them properly. The new students took a respectful bow in front of Xavier and immediately went to work. In the meantime, Xavier brushed over his storage ring and pulled out a large quantity of healing medicine that he distributed amongst the new students. Xavier smiled and walked over to Sunny, who stood next to Layla and Hao. Are you all right? The three of them nodded. Sunny and Layla had not a scratch on them. Hao was panting heavily. It was clear that the fight drained him of all Q energy. Xavier tapped against his storage ring, and one small crystal bottle appeared. He opened it, tilted it, and 3 Q energy recovery pills rolled into his open palm. Xavier stretched his hand out. Take one of those. It'll quickly recover your Q energy. Hao and Layla hesitated for a moment. Only as they saw that Sunny took one and put it into her mouth without hesitation, they took one each as well. Xavier smiled and watched the other new students work like busy bees. Xavier let out a deep breath and stretched himself. We did a great job today. Perhaps we can fight against the black group and the white group tomorrow. We have a lot more support than I expected. Maybe we have a chance. On top of a high tree were 2 old men. They could not believe what had just happened. Incredible! The deputy headmaster was not joking as he said the new students this year are a lot more promising than the previous ones. The other old man agreed with the first one. Indeed, I did not expect this young man to become their leader either. He defeated his opponent quickly, with strategy and patience. This is something most new students do not possess. And to be honest, even some of the older students struggle with it. The first elder chuckled. You are right. Once this fire energy hunting competition is over, I will ask the deputy headmaster to send us some information about this young man. I believe his name was Xavier, wasn't it? With his potential, I would not be surprised if he makes it in the top 50 ranking of the inner circle. The other elder agreed. Yes, I believe so as well. However, I think the lucky streak of the new students is about to come to an end. The black group and the white group are still around. I know some of the older students in these groups. They are a force to be reckoned with. Even this promising new student Xavier will struggle once he faces them. I hope he does not overestimate his abilities. Just as the elder finished his sentence, he could sense something. Can you feel this? There are 5 different Q energies coming closer. I believe that must be either the black group or the white group. How unfortunate. They really are cunning, aren't they? I am sure they knew of the fight and waited until it was over before ambushing the new students. I wonder if it'll be the black group or the white group. Xavier also must have sensed something. His smile dropped. A cold spark lit up in his eyes. Quickly, he unsheathed his broadsword ruler and braced himself for an attack. He turned his head toward the bushes. Some leaves were rustling. Moments later, 5 figures jumped forth. They all emitted powerful Q energies. As the other students saw what was going on, the cheerful atmosphere turned once more tense. The black group, Xavier murmured and looked at the 5 figures that were all dressed in black clothes. If one looked at them from a distance, they looked like shadows. Uneasiness overcame the new students. Lang, who was leaning against a tree, looked at the man in the middle of the black group. The man in the middle was as large and bulky as a gorilla. He was clearly not someone anyone wanted to mess with. Shy, you followed us here? The gorilla-like man called Shy sneered. Course I follow. What do you think? We ran into some kids on the way. They told us some interesting stuff. We didn't want to miss out. Can't believe you were defeated by those kids. You're really a bunch of losers and a disgrace to the inner circle. What do you even do at this academy? Do you waste time daydreaming and fooling around instead of training? The faces of Lang and his friends turned red with anger. Lang wanted to bite his tongue, but could not help to retort. You fucking idiot don't know what you're talking about. These kids are nothing like the ones that usually arrive. They're terrifying. You don't want to mess with them. I'm not embarrassed to be defeated by them. A thunderous laugh came from Shy's mouth. The new students could feel the vibration in the air. It made them shiver. A handful of the new students who were close to the black group took a few steps backward, not turning their eyes away out of fear one of them might attack at any moment. You can't be serious, Lang. Never mind that. I'm not going to waste my breath talking with you. Anyway, I won't return the fire energy until this whole mess is dealt with. Don't blame me for that. If you can't protect your own shit, that's your fault, not mine. Shy looked away from Lang and turned his head to Xavier. His beady eyes glared at him. So you're that new kid named Xavier, huh? I've heard a lot about you. Making all the new students team up was a brilliant move. I gotta admit, that deserves respect. Xavier's heart sank. He could tell that each of the members of the black group was at least at Lang's level or above. Shy was, of course, the most frightening one. He must have been at the peak of the She-Master class. Not much longer, and he would reach the level of a battle spirit. And you must be the black demon of the black group. The other new students told me about you. Xavier remembered all the information he could gather. His throat felt dry. Shy grinned widely as he heard this. He had the grin of a wild beast. You've heard about me. I'm flattered, kid. My true name is Shy, and I'm the leader of the group of the Black Demons. He took a few steps forward toward Xavier. The ground beneath his feet trembled. Let me tell you some good news and some bad news, kid. The good news is that you've got quite the reputation in the inner circle of Nanji Academy. And this before your first day in it. That's quite an achievement. Congrats. Now the bad news. The bad news is that there are many, many older students waiting for you. They ran to the edge of the forest and can't wait to get their hands on you. They've heard that you robbed the older students of their fire energy, and we all know how much fire energy some of these students had. Once you and your little friends walk out of the forest, all the fire energy will be taken back by us, the older students. If you want to avoid getting a beating by every older student of the inner academy, and lose all the fire energy that you've sacrificed so much for, you better hand the fire crystal cards over to me. All of them. What do you say? You'll avoid a lot of trouble if you cooperate. There's no other option? Xavier felt his heart race. He did not want to get his group into trouble. Shy raised his hands into the air. Afraid not. Look, if the 40 new students that are with you would still be at their full power, Even me and my group of black demons would struggle in a fight. However, you can tell they're exhausted. Do you really think they can put up another fight? And then another fight once they reach the edge of the forest? This will be too much for them. You're a smart kid. I'm sure you know this yourself. If you give us the fire crystal cards, you and your little friends won't get hurt, and you can save some face. Xavier tightened his grip around the broadsword ruler. Cold droplets of sweat formed on his forehead. By his side, Sonny, Layla, and Hal appeared. Close behind them were more than 10 new students who gritted their teeth and decided to support Xavier and his group with their remaining strength. They knew another fight was coming near. Shai seemed surprised as he saw the new students gather. He raised his bushy eyebrows and let out his thunderous laugh. I see the fear in all of you, yet you prepare yourself for a fight. You're all either incredibly brave or incredibly suicidal. Anyway, if you want to fight to the death so badly, then let's do it. We haven't run into any students for 3 days in this damned forest. I was getting bored. Shai stretched himself, and he looked even taller. His powerful Q energy surged. Even Xavier felt how his skin crawled. He swung his broadsword ruler and braced himself for another fight. The older student Shai, who was the leader of the group of the Black Demons, surged his Q energy. He flexed his teeth like a beast. Cold sweat ran down Xavier's forehead. Shai and the other 4 older students were far above the level of the other older students. Shai was close to becoming a battle spirit, and the 4 other students of the Black Demon group were close to the peak of the She-Master level. Meanwhile, Xavier and his group of 40 new students were exhausted, and Xavier did not have enough Q energy recovery pills for all of them. Not to mention that even if they would miraculously win this fight, there was still the white group. And then, there were also the other older students waiting for Xavier and his group at the edge of the forest, so they could attack and rob them of their fire energy. Xavier knew the odds were against him. He cursed himself. I guess I really pushed my luck. I should have escaped while things were going smoothly. Now we're really screwed. We have no chance in a fight against them. Perhaps I can come up with a plan. I need to do something. Wait! While Xavier was thinking about a plan, someone suddenly cried out. Shai paused. His bushy eyebrows knitted as he looked over to the source of the voice. The source of the voice was a handsome young man in white clothing. Xavier, who also turned his head, was even more surprised than Shai. Tai? He really is bold. Not even I would tell this guy to wait. Unfortunately, I don't think he will care too much. A bad feeling spread in Xavier's stomach, but he did not dare to interrupt. Tai, who still held his lance tightly in his hand, took a respectful bow toward Shai. Shai, do you remember me? You came to visit me with my older cousin, Bai Fang, remember? Bai Fang? Wait, does that mean you are Tai Fang? Whoever Bai Fang was, the name was enough to cause visible fear in Shai's eyes. His face turned pale. As Tai saw that Shai seemed to remember, his face lit up. Yes, exactly. You remember my older cousin? Shai nodded. His face looked a lot more serious. You're one of those new students? Tai awkwardly rubbed the back of his head. He let out a forced laugh. Yeah, I'm afraid so. But it wasn't my idea to cause any trouble to the older students. Really, I swear. I just followed our leader to get some fire energy. I hope you're not too mad at me for that. I'm sure you understand how tempting it is to get more fire energy. Yes. Yes, of course I do. Don't worry, Tai. I won't hold it against you, since I know your older cousin. I will let you go. I'll make sure my group will leave you alone. Tai took a grateful bow. He then glanced at Xavier and the others. They could not believe what just happened. Anger, shock, and disappointment flashed over their faces. Tai saw all of those emotions and swallowed heavily. As he looked back to Shai, he considered saying something to the other's defense, but then decided against it. There was an immense fear in his heart, and Tai was nothing like his older cousin. Tai was not brave enough to pick a fight that he had no chance of winning. Shai could tell what was on Tai's mind. He frowned. Tai, I know you're worried about your little friends, but don't be. We won't kill them. We'll only beat him half to death. As for you, you should leave. Don't get involved with this." Layla let out a high-pitched cold laugh as she watched the scene. "Ty, you bloody coward. What are you doing? Are you seriously fleeing? You're abandoning your friends like that? You should be ashamed of yourself." "You're calling me a coward because I don't want to get beaten half to death? Or because I don't want to become enemies with all the older students in the inner circle? If anything, you're a bunch of idiots for picking fights you can't win. Besides, what makes you think we're friends? We're not friends. None of us are. We just ended up stuck together in this group by chance. That doesn't mean anything. Not to mention that Xavier is the only one in this group that gets anything out of this. And this isn't fair. We were all fighting for hours. We ended up with injuries, and we did most of the work. Yet Xavier is the one who everyone talks about? Didn't you see how far the new students are in his ass? It's ridiculous. We're not getting any recognition, and we're not getting any fire energy in the end either. And since I'm not getting anything, I might as well save my own skin. I never wanted to be a part of this group anyways. But you can all fight alongside Xavier. But you're going to regret it. In the end, he'll rob you all. He claims he'll share the fire energy, but you just wait and see. He'll steal all the fire energy, and you won't get anything." Ty could no longer hold back his anger. The jealousy in his heart got the better of him. "Oh, you hot-headed idiot, Ty. I can't believe you're so paranoid. Xavier won't steal all the fire energy. We have an agreement, remember? And up until now, Xavier was never bothered by giving us our fair share of the fire energy. Without Xavier as the leader, would we have gotten any fire energy at all? We would be stuck and lost in the forest. Sunny and Xavier are the reason we got a map. They're also the reason we know what fire energy is good for and how to get it. None of us would have made it so far without his help." Layla grew furious. She knew Ty was hot-headed, but she never expected him to act like such a coward. Although she still had some resentment toward Xavier because of his and Sunny's relationship, Layla resented cowardice a lot more. Cowards like this made her blood boil. Xavier, who was next to Layla, held her back as she was about to jump at Ty. "Look, I know it sucks, but there's no point in fighting. We all knew Ty was unhappy about our group from the beginning. I'm not surprised he finally shows his true colors. It was only a matter of time, wasn't it? If he wants to flee, let him flee. We'll be fine without him." Layla huffed. She spat in front of Ty's feet. There was deep hatred forming in her heart. Never before did she hate someone so much. People who flee at the last second and abandon their companions were the sort of people she despised more than anything. Layla was usually very forgiving, but this was something she could not turn a blind eye to. Hao had very similar feelings, but due to his composure, he could hide these feelings well. Yet some of the students who knew him better could see how he looked at Ty with some disdain. Ty gritted his teeth. He looked over to the new students. "You all can follow him for all I care, but don't come crawling back to me once he steals all of your fire energy and watches as you get beaten up by Shy and the other older students." Ty waved his hand and walked away, heading deeper into the forest. The other new students cursed loudly at him. Ty ignored them. Xavier raised his head and watched Ty disappear. He then shook his head and looked back at the new students. "All right, Ty's gone, but don't worry, we still have a shot. Don't lose hope yet." Xavier did not believe his own words, but he wanted to keep everyone's spirit up. Secretly, his heart was pounding in his chest, and his throat was dry. Well, he had fought more powerful opponents before, and therefore did not fear for his own life. He never was in charge of a group. None of these students were anywhere near Xavier's level. They stood no chance, and Xavier could not fight all 5 opponents at once. Xavier knew that if anything would happen to the new students, then he would be the one to blame. It would be his fault. He needed to come up with a plan, and fast. Lang suddenly turned to Xavier. "Xavier, just admit defeat. There's no shame in that. You can't win a fight against the black group, especially not without Ty. Sure, he's an asshole, but he was still a powerful fighter, wasn't he? With him, you've lost a She-Master. Your chances of winning this fight were already low. Now they're close to 0 unless a miracle happens." Deep in his heart, Xavier knew Lang was right. However, he was stubborn. Xavier would not admit defeat just yet. After thinking things through, he slowly shook his head. The pounding of his heart got faster. "No, we are all already gathered here, so we might as well fight to the end. Maybe we lose, maybe we won't. But there's only one way of figuring this out. Let's fight. Xavier's voice echoed through the forest, causing the tension in the air to grow. The group of new students behind him surged their Q energy. They were ready to fight with Xavier, Sunny, Layla, and Hao till the bitter end. It did not matter to them if they would win or lose this fight. They only wanted to prove that they were not cowards, and that the other older students won't be using them as punching bags. They did not even care about the fire energy anymore. Even if Xavier kept all of the fire energy for himself after this fight, at least the new students proved their point. They proved that they were not to be messed with. 5 more new students decided to join the group of new students behind Xavier. They also braced themselves for an attack. None of them feared for their life. After all, it was still a competition, not a full-blown fight to the death. They knew that Nanji Academy would not allow the students to kill each other, and that the elders were secretly keeping an eye on them. If anyone was deadly injured, the elders would interfere. This took some of the fear from the new students' hearts. They fiercely stared at Shy and his 4 group members. Surprise flashed across Shy's face. "You're bold. I'll give you that. Since that's the case, show us what you got." Deep in his heart, Shy felt a lot of respect for Xavier. There was no fear on Xavier's face. Shy had many fights in the inner circle of Nanji Academy, and he knew a powerful opponent when he saw one. Additionally, Shy always admired headstrong people and despised cowards. As he saw Tai abandon his group earlier, Shy also felt disgusted by this action. The only reason he did not comment on it was because of his relationship with Tai's older cousin. Shy surged his Q energy, and the other 4 members of the group of the Black Demons did the same. Intense Q energy waves were emitted from their bodies and made their way through the forest. Xavier took a deep breath. "I want everyone to be careful. I'll deal with Shy." Sunny's Q energy rose. She was directly next to Xavier. "Xavier, you should be more cautious. I can tell that Shy is very close to becoming a battle spirit. Your chances of winning this fight against him and his group are low. Can you perhaps raise your strength again as you did during the qualifying competition? If not, you'll be in deep trouble." Xavier waved her concerns off. "No, I don't want to rely on this secret technique too often, and I don't want everyone from the inner circle to know that I have a secret technique to raise my level. If word would spread, then my secret technique would be no secret anymore, and there would be no point in having it at all. I'll try to defeat his strength without raising my level." Although this was true, there was something Xavier did not tell Sunny. What he did not tell her was that using the Skyfire secret technique drained him rapidly of all his Q energy. If Xavier would raise his level and not defeat the group of Black Demons in a few minutes, he would be out of Q energy. Although Xavier had some Q energy recovery pills left, he was not sure if there were enough to raise his level throughout the entire fight. He decided to use the secret technique as a last resort. Sunny could only helplessly sigh. "All right, I hope you know what you're doing. Hao and Layla are also weakened from the previous fight, but I think they can still handle 1 opponent each. I'll also take care of 1 opponent. However, there are 5 opponents, and we're only a group of 4. Do you think the other new students can take care of 1 opponent? None of the new students are Shi Masters, and they're exhausted from the previous fight. So expecting them to defeat a Shi Master might be a bit much." Layla sighed. She knew Sunny had a good point. "Personally, I feel a bit better, but I'm not sure if Hao has enough Q energy left to take 1 of them on his own. Although you did give me and Sunny a Q energy recovery pill that did help us to recover some of our Q energy, our Q cyclones are far from full. We still need some time to recover all our Q energy." Hao interfered. "Don't worry too much about me. They won't defeat me immediately. I can fight 1 person for a while. It should be fine for about 20 minutes or so. Anyway, we should tell the other new students who they should fight. Letting them take down the 5th person in the group is the only thing we can do." The other new students overheard the conversation between their 4 leaders. "Please don't worry about us either. Although many of us are exhausted, and we're also running out of Q energy, we outnumber them greatly, so we'll still have a chance. If each of you can defeat 1 person, it should not be a problem for the rest of us to also defeat 1 of them." Most of the other new students agreed. Their optimism was boundless. Only a few were worried. "I'm not sure if we should be so sure of this. Although we can block 1 person temporarily, defeating them will be hard.
At our current condition, we'll struggle to defeat a level 5 or level 6 G-Master. After all, most of us are level 9 True Masters at best. Some of us are even below that. There's a huge difference in power between a She-Master and a True Master, especially while being so exhausted.
Xavier nodded slowly. I understand. Unfortunately, we don't have much of a choice. I'll have to ask all of you to block the member of the group of the Black Demons. I, Sunny, Layla, and Hal will do our best to end our fights as fast as possible to lend you a hand afterward. The new students cheered.
We'll do our best, Xavier.
Even the new students who could not fight anymore and had to withdraw from the field cheered. Most of them had no Q energy left. Xavier smiled as he saw this. He was glad that at least the spirits were high. He tightened his grip around the broadsword ruler once more and shot forward against Shy. Sunny, Layla, and Hal shot forth as well. Shy grinned. I will take care of Xavier. Don't worry. Each of you will take care of the other guy and the girls. Whoever's left will take care of the other new students. I know they're outnumbering us, but they're exhausted. And as far as I can tell, none of them are on the level of a She-Master. That shouldn't be too hard of a fight. Shy's 4 group members nodded and braced themselves for the incoming attack. Not a second later, Xavier and his group appeared in front of them. The 5th member of the group of the Black Demons flashed past them and charged at the 15 new students behind Xavier's group. The powerful Q energy of the group of the Black Demons was felt by everyone in the field. It was scary. Xavier raised his head to look into Shy's eyes. Shy was towering a good foot above Xavier. He was also almost twice as broad as the lean Xavier. Shy's domineering aura was impossible to ignore. He was indeed a powerful opponent. Looks like the fight is about to start. No matter how this ends, I won't look down on you. You got some backbone, and I respect that. Shy twisted his neck to the left and the right. A cracking sound could be heard. Dark golden Q energy seeped from his body. Xavier bit his lips. He knew this golden Q energy was incredibly rare and incredibly powerful. It meant that Shy had a gold elemental attribute. The gold attribute had an incredibly high defense. The only downside was that people with this type of elemental attribute tended to have slow reaction times. In Shy's hands were no weapons. He clearly preferred close hand-to-hand combat. Xavier was glad to see this. He also preferred this sort of fighting method. Xavier also knew that he was most proficient in close hand-to-hand combat, which meant his chance of winning this fight increased. Xavier could unleash all the fighting techniques he had mastered over the past 3 years. With one quick motion, Xavier smashed the broadsword ruler into the ground. His Q energy rose. It flooded his Q pathways. Hidden in his Q energy was a small spark that appeared and disappeared every few seconds. It was the green spark of the heavenly flame. Only Xavier knew it was there. No one else could see it. The spark merged perfectly with the green Q energy, making it invisible to the naked eye. You're a level 6 She-Master? Impressive. With this strength, you can keep up with the second-year students in the inner circle. Shy, true to his word, did not look down at Xavier. He respected his opponent and did not dare to underestimate him. This feeling was very mutual. Xavier clenched his fist and aimed an attack against Shy. Octane Blast! Shy moved his hand and blocked off Xavier's attack with his elbow. The Octane Blast attack had almost no effect on Shy. He did not even flinch. Shy's elbow was enough to send Xavier flying backward. Xavier did not care. Air Palm! While flying backward, Xavier aimed his open palm at Shy's chest, and a gust of wind came forth. Due to the years of training and due to how much more powerful Xavier got, Air Palm was nothing like in the past. In the past, it only caused an opponent to stagger. After years of training, the attack got strong enough to cause Shy to fall backward. Without hesitation, Shy jumped to his feet again. He brushed some dirt off his clothes. You have all sorts of strong D techniques. Unfortunately, I don't think they'll do much against me. But I have a feeling you're holding back, aren't you? Don't bother doing that. Show me what you got. I want to see it. I want to see how strong you really are. A sinister grin spread over Xavier's face. All right, but don't get mad at me if you get hurt. Xavier waved his hands, and suddenly, the heat in the entire forest increased by several degrees. The temperature in the forest rose. The tension rose as well. The two elders who were watching from the high tree branches above let out an involuntary gasp. Is this a heavenly flame? Incredible! Shai stared intently at the green flame that had materialized on Xavier's palm. It grew and grew. Shai had met some alchemists at Nanji Academy before, so he could figure out why the temperature had increased so much. You're an alchemist? Xavier did not reply. The green heavenly flame grew more. He infused it with some of his green Q energy to make sure that he would not accidentally kill Shai. Xavier cupped his hands together, and the heavenly flame wrapped around them. He raised his head, and the dangerous green light reflected in his dark pupils. Suddenly, Xavier jumped off the ground and shot toward Shai, while clenching his fist for an attack. The blazing hot air approached Shai. Although he could not tell what sort of flame Xavier had summoned, it scared him. There was immense power in this flame. It was possible to tell this from the intense heat alone. Shai did not bother to dodge the attack. His gold elemental attribute caused him to be very slow. He knew this, and therefore also knew that he could not dodge in time. It would be futile to try. The hot flame came closer. Shai let out a stern cry, and his golden Q energy surged. Golden light surrounded him and formed a golden Q energy armor. It completely wrapped around Shai's enormous body. He clenched his armored fist and aimed an attack against Xavier. Xavier's face got serious. The Q crystal within his Q cyclone trembled. It emitted wave after wave of Q energy. Xavier sent as much of it through his Q pathways as he could, causing a flood of Q energy to surge from his body. The heavenly flame was still wrapped around Xavier's clenched fist. A ferocious force came from it. Even Shai grew worried. Beneath his golden Q energy armor, his skin crawled. Although he had fought against alchemists before, none of them had such a flame. Shai had a feeling this strange flame was strong enough to break through his Q energy armor. In the worst-case scenario, it might injure him as well. A gloomy feeling spread through his heart. Xavier's fist collided with Shai's. Instantly, his Q energy armor shattered. Shock was on his face. Never before did anyone break his Q energy armor with only one hit. The force was enough to send Xavier flying backward. Shai managed to keep his posture. He was forced to take several steps backwards, but he did not fall over. His body was shivering. Xavier immediately went for the next attack. Immediately, as Shai's Q energy armor got destroyed, he formed another one. In the meantime, Hao and Lila's attacks became slower. They were running out of Q energy. The previous fights had a huge toll on them. After 10 minutes of fighting, the bright Q energy around their bodies dimmed. Hao did his best to not show any fear. There was bloodlust in his eyes. He flexed his teeth. It was effective enough to make his opponent feel intimidated. The older student, who did not want to get seriously injured, avoided stepping too close to Hao. Sunny, on the other hand, showed no sign of slowing down. Bright Q energy shot from her hands like golden fire. She moved quickly and gracefully without breaking into much of a sweat. Her attacks were fast like lightning. Sunny knew that Hao and Layla were running out of Q energy, so she wanted to end her fight as quickly as possible. Once this was done, she could help them. Judging from her attacks, it appeared as if her opponent would be defeated at any moment. Meanwhile, the remaining 15 students fought against the last older student from the group of the Black Demons. Although they had a large number, most of them were running out of Q energy and quickly got injured. They knew it was impossible to win against the Shi Master, but they went all out to keep their opponent on his toes. As long as they could stall for time, it did not matter if they defeated him or not. 10 minutes into this fight, 5 of the 15 new students were forced to retreat. Their injuries were too bad. The attacks of their opponent were ruthless. The remaining 10 students could barely hang on. They tried to cooperate with each other, but this was difficult. None of them knew each other very well. Some of them knew each other, but did not like each other. It was a sheer state of chaos. Every 3 minutes or so, another student got injured and was forced to withdraw. Amongst the 5 different fights in the forest, only Sunny was the one having an advantage against her opponents in Xavier's group. The only reason Xavier was not defeated yet was because of his heavenly flame. However, if he won't get an opportunity for one decisive attack, it was unlikely that he would win. Xavier was hoping that Sunny, Hao, or Layla could defeat their opponents as soon as possible. One pair of free hands that helps the other could make a difference. This hope was slowly fading. Hao's blood-red Q energy grew more and more dim. It was clear that he was close to burning out. The additional Q energy that he got from the Q energy recovery pill was about to be completely exhausted. The red sword in his hand trembled. His hand got sweaty. It was difficult to keep a tight grip on it. Yet Hao used all his remaining strength to attack his opponent. He knew he could not give up, but no matter how hard he tried, Hao's opponent easily dodged any attack. As the opponent shot one Q energy blast at Hao's red sword, it was forced out of his hand and flew backward. Hao was panting. Sweat was running down his forehead. His opponent let out a cold laugh, and Q energy shrouded his hands. Immediately, he aimed one final devastating hit toward Hao's chest. Hao saw the fist coming closer. "No, this isn't over." Hao let out a loud cry, using all his remaining strength to defend himself. Suddenly, blood came running down his nostrils and eyes. He clenched his fist, and his last bit of Q energy wrapped around it to block the attack. With a bang, both fists collided. Hao's entire arm trembled. Despite the lack of Q energy, Hao had enough energy left to withstand the attack. His opponent groaned in pain. He was forced to take a few steps back. He raised his head and looked at Hao's almost white face. The member of the group of the Black Demons got furious. "Did you use a secret attack to increase your strength?" He gritted his teeth and aimed another attack at Hao. Before he could finish his attack, a black shadow shot past him. He abruptly paused. The shadow was the member of the group of the Black Demons that was fighting against Sunny. Hao's opponent froze and glanced to his right side. He saw Sunny standing close to him. Bright Q energy shrouded her green clothes. There was no sign of exhaustion on her face. She glared at Hao's opponent with piercing eyes. As Hao's opponent saw this, he cursed loudly. At the same time, the new students felt how new hope overcame them and cheered. Their eyes lit up, and so did their Q energy. "Sunny defeated her opponent! Now she can help Hao!" Sunny walked toward Hao and his opponent. "Are you all right, Hao?" He panted heavily. His tall body swayed. He looked as if he was about to pass out any second. It was clear that Hao was not all right, but he was too stubborn to admit this. "It's nothing. You should leave him to me and help the others." Sunny shook her head. "Hao, you need to rest. Leave him to me." The Q energy around Sunny grew brighter. Hao coughed and shook his head. "No, he's wounded. You can join if you want, but I'm sure I can defeat him with one final attack." Sunny wanted to argue, but before she could say a word, Hao charged at his opponent. Sunny gritted her teeth. A rare, angry flush crossed her cheeks. She raised her hand, and the Q energy that wrapped around it transformed into a whip. This whip unfurled and struck like lightning at Hao's opponent. Hot air surrounded the Q energy whip. The muddy earth beneath it turned into dry dust. Before Hao's opponent had the chance to react, the whip hit his chest. Not even a second later, Hao's foot kicked against his lower abdomen. He flew backward and crashed against a tree. Crack lines appeared in it. The man spat out a mouthful of blood. The students who watched with awe cried out with joy. The tension in the air was replaced with hope. Following the defeat of the 2 members of the group of the Black Demons, the chance of victory increased. There were only 3 opponents left. Thanks to Sunny, Xavier's group defeated 2 of their 5 opponents. Unfortunately, Hao was completely drained of his Q energy, and therefore was forced to withdraw. Despite this, hope spread amongst Xavier's group. Watching from the sideline were Lang, Yan, and a bunch of other older students. Shock was on their faces as they watched Sunny defeat 2 members of the group of the Black Demons. Suddenly, they thought of Sunny in a very different way. Up until this point, they thought of her as nothing more than a pretty face. but after witnessing her vicious attack, they gained a lot of respect for her. Xavier's group can be really lucky to have Sunny on their side. Without her, Hal would have had no chance to defeat his opponent. Honestly, I did not think they would have a chance after Tai left. He was a she-master as well, wasn't he? Lang, although he was an older student, did not care if Xavier's group would win or not. He was impressed. As the name Tai fell, the older student named Jan, who sat next to Lang, looked visibly disgusted. I can't believe Tai ran away like a coward. As I saw Tai for the first time, I expected more of him. He looked like a strong, reliable young man. But I guess looks can be deceiving. It's very disappointing. Anyway, I think it all depends on Sunny now. If she can support the new students that are still on the battlefield, maybe not all is lost for Xavier's group. To most students, it looked as if Sunny was the most important factor on the battlefield. However, Xavier also had an important role to play. He was still fighting Shy. If Xavier would lose this fight, the rest of his group would be lost. None of the new students would stand a chance against Shy. Xavier knew he had to defeat him quickly. Shy looked grim as he saw that 2 members of his Black Demon group had been defeated. He did not hide his anger. Instead, he used his anger to fuel his attacks. They became much more vicious. Xavier kept his composure. There was not the slightest sign of fear on his face. Despite this, his heart was racing. He could not afford to lose this fight. The new students would be screwed, and Xavier would be the one to blame. Many of the defeated new and old students watched the fight between Xavier and Shy from the sidelines. The battle grew more intense with every minute. The people watching did not dare to look away for even a second. They knew any second, something unexpected could happen that could change everything. The students were sweating. Time flew by quickly. Suddenly, a loud bang drew everyone's attention towards Sunny. She, alongside some of the remaining students, defeated the third opponent. Without celebrating their victory, Sunny immediately charged to the next opponent. It was the member of the group of the Black Demons that was fighting against Layla. Layla could finally relax a bit. She was also close to running out of Q energy. With Sunny's help, it did not take long to defeat the 4th member of the group of the Black Demons. The new students cheered as loudly as they could. Most of them were also drained of all their Q energy. They were panting heavily. Now there was only one opponent left. This one was, of course, Shy, who was fighting against Xavier. Layla and Sunny took a look at their surroundings. The clearing in the forest was utterly destroyed. Many trees fell over. Dirt, mud, and blood covered the ground. Broken rocks scattered all over the field. Sunny and Layla had no energy left. With a deep breath, they let themselves fall onto the muddy ground. Even Sunny felt tired. She did not notice how much Q energy she used during her fights. The adrenaline that was pumping through her body prevented her from feeling tired. Now, with the adrenaline gone, exhaustion suddenly overwhelmed her. She brushed some sweat from her forehead. Her Q energy dimmed down. If it were not for her high-leveled Q method, she would have ended up in a worse state. She would have ended up like Hao. Since Hao was drained entirely of his Q energy, his combat strength got a lot weaker. It would take him a while until he could reach his old strength again. Sunny supported herself by leaning against the thick tree. She tried to catch her breath and watched Xavier fighting Shy. As she saw that Xavier showed no signs of slowing down, she sighed in relief. Her tense shoulders dropped. Finally, we got the upper hand. Now Xavier needs to defeat Shy, and then we finally win. The older student Jing looked at Sunny with awe. The unexpected turn of events left him speechless. He never expected Sunny to be so powerful. Secretly, he could not help but feel a bit bitter about it. All he wanted was to rob the new students of their fire energy. In the end, not only did he end up getting defeated by the new students, but he also ended up with less fire energy than he started with. He exchanged a gloomy glance with Lang. Lang felt the exact same. All they could do was laugh bitterly at the irony of his situation. It's only a matter of time until Xavier ends up in the top 50 ranking at the inner circle. What do you think, Lang? Lang nodded. Yeah, I agree. If he spends his time wisely and keeps training in the Q training tower, it won't take too long. He already made a name for himself, and he didn't even enter the inner circle yet. Honestly, I'm a bit jealous. Me too. I really did not think he could endure for so long against Shy. We all know how powerful and scary Shy is. I wouldn't want to cross him. I'd seen him fight in the arena 2 weeks ago. He was shrewd and ruthless. In the end, he defeated a level 1 battle spirit. As Jing remembered this, he shivered. Jing wondered silently how Xavier was able to keep fighting. Since Jing was no alchemist, he did not know about the heavenly flame and its power. If it were not for the heavenly flame, Xavier would have been screwed. Sunny, Layla, and some of the other students struggled to stand up after catching their breath. They exchanged some knowing glances. Instantly, some new Q energy surged from their bodies. Like lightning, they flashed over the battlefield and surrounded Xavier as well as Shy. Not everyone could join them to help. Most of the new students were too exhausted. They had not recovered any of their Q energy yet. They also knew that even if they had recovered their strength, they would not have been of much help. The new students were only true masters. They were terrified of facing someone who was about to become a battle spirit. Xavier's fist collided with Shy's fist again. A clear sound echoed through the air, like metal hitting metal. The force was enough to make Xavier's shoulders quiver. He could feel the force vibrating through his muscles. With a deep breath, he surged more of his heavenly flame. The green flame around his fist grew stronger. It swept over to Shy's Q energy armor. A sizzling sound was heard. Xavier felt how he grew exhausted. By mobilizing a large amount of the heavenly flame, he used up a large amount of his Q energy. Additionally, he used up a lot of his spiritual strength. Shy began to sweat. The temperature in his Q energy armor increased drastically. He felt like he was stuck in an oven. His skin was burning. Loudly, he cursed Xavier. He was fueled by rage. Each time he aimed an attack at Xavier, the heat of the flame would force him to withdraw. Repeatedly, he fell back. Xavier was also sweating. He knew he could not keep fighting like this forever. Sooner or later, he would run out of Q energy. He was searching for an opportunity to deliver a final blow to end this fight. Whenever the flame got close to the Q energy armor, it left charred black marks. Before the Q energy armor shattered, Xavier's flame suddenly went out. His eyes turned wide. Meanwhile, Shy sighed in relief. He grinned widely as he saw Xavier's dumbstruck face when the flame went out. "Looks like you're out of luck. That's too bad." He burst into thunderous laughter. Xavier was unbothered. He waved his hand, and a crystal bottle appeared in his hand. With a quick motion, he opened the bottle and let 3 pills roll into his open hand. Quickly, he popped them into his mouth. Slowly, Xavier could feel his Q energy being restored. He stretched himself, and the green flame appeared once more. Since Xavier's Q energy was not yet fully restored, the heavenly flame was not as powerful as earlier, but it was powerful enough to scare Shy. Does he have so much money that he can eat these pills like candy? Man, being an alchemist must be nice. Shy turned green with envy. Bitterness grew in his heart. Shy had no idea how he could win in such an unfair fight. He wondered if Xavier had more Q energy recovery pills. Xavier looked at Layla and Sunny next to him. "Are you girls going to help me to deliver the final blow? I'm tired of fighting." Xavier did not have to mention this twice. Sunny and Layla readied their attacks. Xavier did the same. Shy's pupils dilated as the 3 different colored blasts of energy came closer. "Wait!" By 3 blasts of energy at once, it shattered instantly. A thunder-like sound echoed through the demolished battlefield in the forest. Shy was sent flying backward. Steam was coming from his body. He groaned with pain. The older students were stunned as they saw that the infamous Black Demon got defeated by the new students. "We've lost! Can you believe that?" They exchanged some confused looks. An awkward silence was amongst them. Never before did the older students of Nanji Academy get defeated by the new ones so easily. As the new students saw what had happened, they cheered loudly. Their cheering shook the entire forest. Even though they had no energy left, they forced themselves to stand up and applaud. Many of them chanted Xavier's name. He had become their hero. Xavier went to a boulder in the clearing and let himself fall on it. He ignored the masses of students walking up to him, congratulating him. Occasionally, he gave them a smile, but he was too exhausted to be bothered by them. His robe was drenched with sweat. He needed to take a break. It was Sonny who interrupted his break about an hour later. Xavier, we need to share the fire energy that we gathered. We built up a table. Please come over when you're ready. Xavier opened his eyes and sighed. He looked over to the spot where Sonny pointed at. On the spot was an improvised table made of some wooden boards. Xavier stood up and walked over. Behind the improvised table was a large rock where Xavier sat down. The new students who saw that Xavier sat behind the table decided to sit in front of the table to see how much fire energy they earned. Sonny brought over the fire crystal cards and put them all on the table. Xavier reached for the first one. This fire crystal card only has the number 2 on it. Whoever owns it must have been defeated by us and the new students before. Xavier put it to the side and then reached for the next one. As he saw that this one also had the number 2 on the screen, he put it atop the first card. Many more cards with the number 2 on them followed. The longer this went on, the more new students sat in front of the table. Although they looked exhausted and weary, their eyes filled with curiosity. On the other side, across the clearing, were the older students. They also watched Xavier, but with resentment. Xavier ignored them. He picked up a black fire crystal card and rubbed it against the blue one. Moments later, the number on the screen of the black card was raised to the number 5. He continued to rub, and the 5 turned into a 6, then into a 7. Once Xavier saw the 7, he put the black card to the side and reached for the next one. Xavier did this to all the black fire crystal cards of the new students. He also gave some of the students who did not have their fire energy taken away another 5 days' worth of fire energy. He wanted to thank them for their continuous support during the fight. Xavier understood that without their help, they would have lost the fight. A long time later, Xavier placed the final black fire crystal card onto the table. He then turned to Sonny and Layla. Can the 2 of you turn the fire crystal cards back to their owner? Sonny and Layla nodded and grabbed the fire crystal cards to hand them back. Luckily, the names of the students were marked on the back of their cards, so this was an easy task. The new students beamed with joy as they got their cards back. Xavier smiled as he saw their excitement. He then turned towards Hao, who was training with crossed legs and closed eyes at the edge of the forest clearing. Looks like he's doing better. It'll take a while until he recovers all his Q energy, though. At least his wounds are not bad. It doesn't look as if his Q pathways or bones are injured. If his Q pathways were injured, he would be bedbound for a few weeks to fully recover. Xavier looked at the pile of blue fire crystal cards that were left on the table in front of him. Let's see. If I'm correct, then there are about 270 days worth of fire energy on all the blue cards. That means me, Sonny, Hal, and Layla will get at least 60 days worth of fire energy. Xavier transferred all the remaining fire energy onto his own fire crystal card, and then headed to the older students. As they saw Xavier approaching, they frowned. The atmosphere amongst them was gloomy. Xavier laughed awkwardly. Sorry, but I'm sure you understand why I have to reward the new students who helped me out. He handed the older students their fire crystal cards. Shai grabbed his with one hand and looked at the screen on it. His eyelids twitched. Never before was I so humiliated. I saved up for 2 months so I could take part in the fire energy hunting competition, and now it's all gone. Xavier rubbed the back of his head. Well, it's not all gone. I left a few days' worth of fire energy on it. Besides, you're tough. I'm sure you can get some new fire energy quickly, right? Speaking of which, how about an offer? Shai raised a bushy eyebrow. What sort of offer? I'm not going to do you any favors. Xavier laughed. Oh no, of course not. Don't worry. I wanted to offer you 20 days' worth of fire energy, and in exchange, you'll give me all the information I want to know. If you don't want to, maybe Lang would be willing to accept this offer. Xavier smirked and played with his black fire crystal card. Hearing Lang's name made Shai straighten up. Right now, Shy desperately needed any fire energy he could get. While 20 days' worth of fire energy was usually not much for him, he was in no position to refuse Xavier's offer. Xavier knew this, of course. Shy glared at him and asked, "What information do you need?" "Shy, I want you to tell me everything you know about the White Group. They're still out there. I have a feeling I'll run into them on our way to the Inner Circle. If I want to defeat them, I need to know everything about them." Shy understood Xavier's intent. He looked across the new students on the open ground. They were weakened and exhausted. Many of them struggled to stand and panted heavily. If they were to run into the White Group, they would stand no chance. "The group of the White Demons is a bit stronger than my group." When Shy admitted this, Xavier frowned. This was bad news. "How much stronger are they?" Xavier asked. Shy thought for a second. "Well, most of the group members are similar in strength to mine, but their leader is something else. His name is Shiro. He's terrifying. 2 months ago he leveled up. Now he's a battle spirit. Look, I don't want to destroy your hopes, but your group has no chance. If you run into them, it would be for the best to throw in the towel. You don't want them to get hurt, do you?" Shy took a nod towards the weakened new students. Xavier pushed his lips together. "They're exhausted now. If they were at their full strength, then we have a chance." Shy laughed. "If you would have 50 students at their full strength, then you might have a chance. However, right now, all you have is a bunch of weak kids that can hardly stand on their legs. It won't help much. I can see how weakened they are. Many of them are injured. It would take them at least 3 days to recover. You know there's a time limit, right? The fire energy hunting competition lasts 1 week. If you don't arrive at the Inner Circle this week, it'll be bad." Xavier grinned. "You're forgetting something. I'm an alchemist. They're not in such a bad state from an alchemist's point of view. I'm sure they'll recover a lot quicker with my help. With enough ingredients, I can help them recover in no time." Xavier pulled out Shy's blue fire crystal card and rubbed it against his own. Moments later, 20 days' worth of fire energy was added to the blue card. Xavier handed it to Shy and walked back to the improvised table. Many new students were still sitting in front of it. "Everyone, there's one final challenge ahead of us before we can reach the Inner Circle. If we pass this challenge, we get to keep the fire energy that we gathered. If not, we'll be robbed and beaten up. If this group of white demons defeats us, they will not leave us with any of the fire energy we fought so hard for." The cheerful atmosphere died down as Xavier mentioned this. Many smiles dropped. They did not expect that they would have to defend their fire energy again. They began to whisper and murmur. The newfound hope was about to leave them. Xavier raised his hand. "I know this sounds bad, but we don't have to give up just yet. We can work together one more time and defeat the White Group. Let's combine our strength and charge into this final battle." The new students cheered loudly after Xavier's speech. They were ready to fight with him one last time. None of them wanted to lose their fire energy to the last group of the older students that were left. Once they defeated the White Group, they could arrive at the Inner Circle safely. Xavier was thrilled to see that the new students agreed to fight with him one more time. "We'll stay here for one more day so that we can recover our strength and Q energy. I can see that many of us are exhausted. Some are even wounded. Try to recover your Q energy, and I'll make sure to make some pills in the meantime that can help to speed things up." The new students did not doubt Xavier. Since he was the only reason they defeated the group of black demons, they trusted him with their lives. Xavier crossed his legs and waved his hands. The cauldron he purchased in the Black Zone came from his storage ring. With another wave of his hands, countless ingredients appeared. Xavier lined them up at the table in front of him. He then flicked his fingers, and the green heavenly flame flew into the cauldron. One by one, Xavier refined the ingredients.